Welcome to the Atlanta Sci-Fi Film Festival's Judges Panel Discussion. With me today is Federico Furzan, Rotten Tomatoes film critic, born on Earth, I think, I don't even know if he knows, fundamentalist of Spielberg's take on aliens, both nice and evil, and seeker of fantastic stories and the hidden levels of indie cinema. His favorite film is Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and I'm pretty sure he's not alone in that. Next up, we have Emily Dean, storyboard artist, director of an upcoming episode of Netflix Love, Death, and Robots. Emily Dean is a creator, filmmaker, and artist from Australia living in LA. Her credits as a storyboard artist include the Lego Batman movie, sci-fi thriller Hotel Artemis, and the Academy Award-winning animated short Hair Love. And last but not least, Nina Villani, who's the coordinator at the VFX company Crafty Apes. And she's standing in for Chris LeDoux, for anybody who's wondering. She's also the COO and head writer at Lark Media Production Company. Nina has worked in the film industry for over 7 years, writing and directing and producing. Her strong passion for storytelling attracted her to the film industry. And last but not least, I am Amanda Ray, Film Festival organizer. So welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Hey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we're going to just dive right on in and have this little panel discussion. I mean, you guys, took your time and watched a lot of shorts. You've seen a lot of the films that we have in competition this year. Some really, really great stuff. Some really talented people coming up. Some are first-time directors. I don't know if you saw some of the folks' background, things like that, which is really nice. But overall, what did you guys think of the films that we got this year? Because I think we got more than normal. We got a larger amount of film this year, or somewhere 100 and something films. So we had a lot, and these are mostly shorts. But what did you think of the quality of films we got this year?
Personally, I thought that there was a lot of creativeness in the films, and I was amazed by how people were just able to come up with these ideas, like futuristic, about aliens, technology, things I'd never even thought of. So I was really impressed by that, and I know how hard it is to take an idea that you have, write it out, and then actually like make it come together and create a film. So I'm impressed that everyone who submitted to you, followed through and made that idea a real thing. So yay to everyone.
I will follow up and say that as I was watching the films, I found so many of them so inspiring. And I was inspired by how ambitious they were. Not every film stuck the landing, but I really admired just how big thinking a lot of these films were. And it's a big challenge to take on as a filmmaker. So I congratulate everyone.
Yeah, what I thought about first is that it's not easy to tell a story with a short film. And it's even more difficult when it comes to sci-fi, because you have to add some elements that are not very common in short films. And as I watched them, I was thinking of this creativity of how you can use such a original format as a short film in that you have to tell a whole story in 15 minutes or less. And what I liked about the films that I saw is that even though they're not like big explosive budgets, there's a certain level of quality that just blew my mind. And I also want to congratulate them, because it cannot be very easy to do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the quality this year was definitely stepped up, and I think that the overall budget was really good. I think people are spending their money wisely and getting things done with just a small amount of money. But the production values were pretty good. And being able to tell a great, clean, good story without a big production budget. I mean, some people prove that, you know what I mean, that it can be done. You don't always need big explosive things and a lot of VFX. And some people have heavy hands when it comes to VFX and maybe do too much, and sometimes less is more. But what are some common mistakes that you've seen that some filmmakers have made this year with some of the submissions?
I can't not to I just remember at times I thought that maybe the story was there, but I got distracted by them, like VFX wise, trying to create something that wasn't really working. So I think in the end, just go with the story. To me personally, that's more important than trying to create something that, isn't, if it happens, it happens. But if you're unable to do it, just go with the story if it's good, And in addition to that, sometimes I thought maybe certain characters weren't fully developed and they needed more of a backstory. So, like maybe the main character was pretty developed, but the supporting characters needed some more work because, it can kind of feel, you can tell when someone's just talking and there's not a depth to that character. So.
Right. Do you think that is story-wise, or you think that's an acting issue though? Do you think it's a little of both, or?
It's both. It's hard to tell really, because you don't know. I mean, I assume the actor's being directed based on what the script says for them to do. But yeah, I mean, you do need really good actors as well to,
Right.
We all read different, we can all four of us could read a sentence a different way, and maybe it'll work one way or I'll say it a different way. So, but that comes to directing as well. So.
Very true.
Yeah. I'd second that. I'd also say there were quite a few longer films this year. A lot of them were going up to the 15-minute mark, and sometimes I felt like the story behind it didn't warrant stretching that long in duration. So, in the editing room, I'd really ask yourself, where can I trim? What's not needed here? Because anything that isn't needed is going to be distracting the audience from what's really important. So don't be afraid to really get in there with your editor. That's my first point. The second point I'd make is really strong character introductions. So set up your main character really well. The audience needs to know who this person is, what their problem is, what the conflict of the story is going to be. And we need to be on board with that main character in the first 30 seconds of the short. So, because shorts go by pretty quick, so you really need to get in there, know who we're traveling with, and then we're off and away. But if the audience has to kind of wait too long or wonder who the main character is because they don't have a good establishing shot or a good setup, then you kind of lose people's attention. So, the first thing would be, time, how long is your short? And the second is, set up that main character so that the audience is with them for the journey.
Gotcha. Those are great points. Do you agree, Federico?
Yeah, I agree with Nina. Most of all, in regards to the character depth that's needed in short films, because even though we won't have much time to explore into the characters, we need something, and some of the characters just miss that mark. I would also add that sometimes sound mixing needs to be perked up a bit, because sometimes I just didn't understand. And with short films and with sci-fi short films, sound is just something you cannot miss, because you need to make up for a whole experience in just 15 minutes. And if that experience doesn't hit you in the first 5 minutes, I'm not going to be interested.
Right.
And some of the shorts just went all the way. I feel like there were I have favorites of the festival, but I feel that 2 or 3 just went all the way in regards to just character development and just how the story took them all the way to the end.
No, that's a good point. I'm always distracted by a few things. Music, because I kind of, have a music background, so sound is one of the most important things, especially in science fiction. And we did a music and sci-fi panel to kind of address some of those concerns and issues about, creating sound and finding the right soundtrack and, all that kind of stuff to go along with the science fiction film. And it's not going to always be like that annoying theremin or these high pitch, outer limits. Like we can do anything nowadays when it comes to music and sci-fi. But music is usually a big ear sore for me when it can be distracting, along with the acting. If it's, really bad and it's not done well, it can throw you off. And, you see a great script, but those are things that if you can keep those from, I guess, being such a big eyesore that takes away from the rest of it, you can get away with more and people can still see the potential of it. Any other filmmaking tips you can give?
I like what Federico was saying earlier with the sound. I noticed, to me, that was the thing I noticed lacking the most, is that people, they kind of forgot about the sound, not forgot, but maybe they're not good at it and they didn't hire a sound op and they try to just do it themselves, or a mixer. So it's something I think definitely worth spending money on. And you, like, I've noticed on projects I've worked at, I had to learn my own strengths. Like, I've tried to edit commercials before, and in the end, I was like, man, this is not, I need to actually hire someone now because I'm not an editor. So it's just knowing, what you're good at, what you actually want to do, and not trying to save money in ways that, you can't make up for. So.
I'd add to that by saying, a good film doesn't have to cost a whole lot of money. And the thing is, you can make something feel consistent as long, like, there's no point in having amazing sound, VFX, and then the sound isn't great. So you have to make everything feel like it's on the same level and do the best that you can. So that actually means kind of spreading the money out a little bit more evenly than just putting it all into like getting a great actor, but your cinematography is off, so try to find a way to bring everything up together.
Yeah, no, that would definitely make sense to do something like that. But I don't think people think of music. I think music and sound is just kind of the last thing they think about and don't really respect it enough to understand that tells you a lot of times how to feel. The moment, before anybody says anything, you hear music most of the time before anyone says anything, before any dialogue. It sets the tone, it sets the mood, it puts you right where you want your audience to be. You can control the audience in a lot of ways. I think we had a few films that are actually with no dialogue. And the music was so incredible. It just moved me so much. And we put that in our new category of immersive art. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see it, because I know you guys didn't see everything, but it wasn't a music, someone named theirs, I think, a music video, but they're not really music videos. There's nobody singing and dancing it. It's just moving images with music. But it was done so well, and the music was chosen so well that it puts you in this mood and it evoked all this emotion, and there was no dialogue. So I think people need to understand the power that music brings. Case in point, Devs. I don't know if you guys watch Devs, the television series, one of my favorite series, as well as Ex Machina. The music that was used in this, and I think one of the guys who did the score for that comes from the band Portishead, if I'm not mistaken. One of the Portishead actual band members was one of the did the music for the series. And I was always moved by their choice of songs that they chose for certain films or certain scenes, right? It was, and that's the thing with science fiction. The floodgates are wide open. You can put a country song, you can put a hip hop song. It just whatever you want the audience to feel or think, whatever goes with the scene or sets the mood or what's going on at the time. But there's just so much out there that I feel like people who are maybe for the first time going, and maybe they're new to science fiction, and that's probably why, right? And they don't watch enough science fiction. Because if you watched enough science fiction and paid attention to the music in it, you'll hear all kinds of stuff. You know what I mean? It's very broad, it's very different, as opposed to they feel more pigeonholed where they think that they have to just use these certain sounds and that's it. And that's sometimes such a disappointment, because there's like so much music out there and so much sound. So yeah, I just thought that was something that I wasn't sure if you guys picked up on. So what are your favorite films and why? And obviously I'm talking about science fiction, but what about it in terms of, like, if you wanted to tell one of the filmmakers who missed the mark, here's an example of where they hit all the points in this particular film.
I'm going with mine. My favorite film is Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and it's incomparable to short science fiction film, an indie film. And the reason I like that film is because it manages to tell a very human story with a very fictional setting of, aliens visiting Earth. But it's just a very honest exploration of the American dream right there, and the way it's just shattered in favor of something that's very mysterious. And you have just this one guy who's just a blue collar man that's just trying to understand what's happening to him. And I like that connection between his normality and the fact that it's just like the most important moment in humankind history. So yeah, that's why I like the film. And I like, of course, the music of the film.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love Spielberg. I mean, I think that's I mean, his first films are just proof of his creativity. And now, even though I was born like 5 years after the film was released, my father always played it on the TV, and he always like told me what I had to say about the film. It's just, I think that's why it's my favorite also, because it's just like it reminds me of my relationship with my father.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have two.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, the first one is Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And there's so much to say about how groundbreaking that film was, and is still. I think for me, what I admire most is just the fearlessness of Kubrick as a filmmaker. And it's hard to, we tend to forget, but this movie came out before Star Wars, and it was
it sure did.
such a game changer for every craft in filmmaking. And in terms of the story, what I love is that it's asking the big questions about man, machine, God,
right,
existence, it's got everything in there. And it's so bold. So that's my first film. My second film, which is actually a compilation of short films, so maybe that will help filmmakers, is actually Akira Kurosawa's Dreams.
Yes, I love that movie too. I don't hear many people talk about that one, though. I rarely meet anyone who actually even knows of that film. I know all of Akira Kurosawa's films, but that in particular, I don't hear as many people talk about.
And what's so cool about it is that there are actually science fiction shorts in it. There's one short story about like a post-apocalyptic Japan, what that would be like after a nuclear war. So I just, as a filmmaker, as a short filmmaker, that is the best education in filmmaking for me anyway, was just watching that film, because it was, you know, his imagination. He got to make whatever he wanted. And yeah, it's just, he dabbles in fantasy, science fiction, a ghost story, you know, like
Yes.
if you're into horror, genre,
Mhm.
anything, it's all there. So, and he's a masterful filmmaker, and yeah, I highly recommend it for everyone. So those are my two.
I always have such a difficult time answering this question because I like a lot of different things. So I'm just like, I don't even know my answer. And yeah, but I will say in regards to like sci-fi, I really like the way in short films, this isn't like a film, but I like television shows a lot more than movies
Mhm,
because
mhm,
I
mhm.
like to watch like character development throughout a series. You have more
Right.
room to play with. So I understand with shorts, it's difficult to do that. But Black Mirror did that very well with their short episodes and developing characters so well, and it kind of like stuck with you. So I
Yes.
think that, you know, that's a good example to follow as far as, you know, getting
Mhm.
to the point quickly, having this huge concept, allowing the audience to grasp it in such a short time, and while also getting to know the characters. It's hard when you have, you know, this world that you want the audience to understand, but also these people you want them to understand.
Right.
So I do think, just like with music has its freedom with being able to say things without saying them, I think that sci-fi has that because you have an abstract world and you can make a point without directly saying it. So I think that allows freedom to get in people's minds and help them to think a little bit
Mhm.
more about things rather than, you know, have without their guards up, you know.
Yep. No,
Like,
I totally agree. It's so funny because I was thinking earlier when you, I think Emily thought of this when you were talking, but then it came to me again with Nina, is that it sounds like real estate is a really big deal when it comes to filmmaking, especially when it comes to doing a short. Real estate in the sense of you have this limited amount of time. But when I think of a couple of short films, some that were in the festival, but where the first 3 minutes felt like 10 minutes. When they utilize their time so well, even when it's going kind of like really slow and you're sitting there and you're like, okay, it unfolds. There was a short that I watched and I didn't realize, you know, 13 or 12 minutes went by, you know, it felt longer. And when you think of that amount of time and that real estate that you have to make sure that every scene and everything, you know, is developed well so that when you finish with that 10 minutes or so or 12 minutes, it feels like you watched something that was 30 minutes long, or you know what I mean? And those are usually the ones that I feel like they use their time the wisest.
I will say whenever I'm writing, I have a difficult time at first. It's always long-winded. You know, the characters are
Hmm.
saying way too much. I mean, they're like paragraphs, and then I have to go through and think of how can they show this instead of say this, and you know, and I think that there's a lot to that. Just write what's on your mind, write the environment you want your characters to be in, and then think of ways to show it without saying it, to show it
Hmm.
quickly, the micro movements, the, you know, the little subtle hints, because that goes a long way, and especially with short films and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
and the audience is pretty smart. They'll pick up on a lot of things. I've seen films where they're a little too heavy-handed and think that the audience didn't get it, so then they had to like, you know, hit it over our heads and say it, and I'm like, oh, really? It's like we got it. So that's a very good point. That you know, being knowing when to have those subtleties there, but not have too much subtlety where the audience is like, I don't understand what's happening right now. They don't get it. That's have you guys experienced the seeing that where, you know, they were too subtle and you're like, okay, I could have used a little bit of hint here.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
it happens. I mean, we cannot deny that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I like when filmmakers don't like to treat their audiences as dumb people. I mean, and that's just a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
as
Mhm.
Nina said, you don't have to show that something's happening for the audience to understand that it's happening. Um, and I think that with short films, you have to force yourself to cut some of the content that's maybe like feels like an additional in the editing room.
Mhm.
But at the end, it's still an art that has to be developed at some point. And I like how the different filmmakers treat their audiences in regards to the story, because at the end, if the story doesn't translate into a feeling by the audience, it's not working.
Mhm. 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 We talked a little bit about your favorite films, and you guys expressed that, and you did express some of the things that you don't like. But I'm just going to throw this out there, just in case you didn't fully go into this before. What was the one film you watched and you hated it? You just was like, you barely could sit through it, or you either stopped it and just didn't finish it. And it doesn't have to be a film in the festival, by the way. I'm talking about a released feature. Don't want to put anybody on the spot, but
I have some pet peeves, but I can't actually remember a movie that I walked out of, and if it's a Netflix movie that I just kind of, I don't know, hit next or look at my phone or something. But some pet peeves when it comes to sci-fi is um copying tropes that have been done a million times before. And
Mhm.
like
That's a good one.
there every genre has their tropes, and it's okay to do a trope, but what are you adding, how can you do something original with it?
Exactly.
Yeah. So when I'm feel like I'm watching something where it's like, oh, I'm just trying to be like somebody else or make another film like someone else did,
Mhm.
then you kind of lose it. But when they're actually pushing forward and pushing the genre forward and saying, I actually have something to say, then that's when I'm hooked. So
Mhm.
I'd encourage people to do that.
Yeah. I don't even know if they know they're copying the other person though. Like I think sometimes people get so influenced by Blade Runner or The Matrix or anything, and they're like they think they're just paying homage to it. And there's a difference between paying homage, but saying something and then just doing the exact same thing. I think sometimes people get confused because, especially in science fiction, we have way more geek fans in this genre that get caught up in that, and I don't know if they can tell the difference.
Yeah, for me, I will say, like, if sound is too low or too loud or is off, I just can't handle it. More
Mm-hmm.
like the audio when people are talking, music and stuff, I can deal with, but it's just if I can't understand what people are saying or it sounds horrible, it's like jarring. Or if a movie film takes too long to kind of get to the point and I don't even know what I'm watching and it's too much. I know a lot of even shows are doing this now. Maybe it's just me. I just like to get to the characters. That's my personality though. But when they do too much scenery, like, oh, look at this cool set we have. And I used to be a set dresser, so I'm all about the set.
Yeah.
I like that. But sometimes they spend too much time just Marvel does this a lot, but they spend too much time just slowly like showing the scenery, and I'm just like,
Do
okay,
you
but
think they're
what's
trying
gonna
to put?
happen?
Do you think they're trying to just put you in the scene? You're like set the mood and put you in there like a world building thing, or no?
I'm not sure. I think it's more than that. I think they're just trying to like, look how cool this looks. But it does look really cool. But it's just, it depends on like my preference is different than many others. I'm sure a lot of other people like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also shows that I don't like that other people love just because I don't like the characters. They're too narcissistic or something about them. I can't
Mm-hmm.
watch it because I think we want to see parts of ourselves in these characters.
Right.
And sometimes, or like, but sometimes if they're just too much or too, I don't know. If I don't like the character, it's hard for me to continue like rooting for them and watching
Mm-hmm.
something like what was that show a lot of people like the one with the guy started selling drugs and he had cancer.
Breaking Bad.
Breaking
Breaking
Bad.
Bad. Like my family liked that, but I couldn't watch it because I didn't like the character. I was like, he did so many horrible things, and for what reason? You know, I can't watch this show. I hate it. And then like Stranger Things, I can't watch either because after Barb, I'm like, that was messed up. I can't watch that. Why would that girl do that to her friend, leaving her like that? So, you know, you're not never gonna please everyone. So, I think it's important to, I don't know, don't try to please everyone is my point. But things like sound and technical stuff, you should try to pay attention to that. And
yeah, because that's an easy fix. That's not like yeah. How about you, Federico? You thought of anything?
Yeah, it's not sci-fi. And I'm not used to walking out of theaters because I just like to watch the movie all the way through the end to see if it's satisfying at some point.
Yeah, see if it changes or something happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta give credit to the whole team behind the movie, just not the director, and that's what I like. That's why I like to watch films until the end. But I remember watching. It was a film called The Snowman. It was a thriller, and I hated that film. And I don't hate films, but that film made me hate films.
Oh wow!
It was. I know. I mean, after I saw it, I found out that it wasn't just some production issues or something like that, and that the film was poorly edited by the studio. I don't know, but just the final result of that movie is it's ugly. It's an ugly film. Films don't have to be ugly. Films cannot be ugly. That's why I keep thinking about the film to tell people not to do with a film. I mean,
is that the Michael Fassbender one? He plays a character called Harry Hole, who's a detective, right?
Yes.
It's actually based on, I think, a book. And the book is really cool. Yeah.
The book is good.
The book is really cool. Yeah. So I think I had the same reaction as you when I it's always a bummer when the film doesn't do the book justice, because then you're like, you've wasted such a great opportunity to take an amazing story and turn it into something great. Yeah.
I've never seen it before, never heard of it, and I'm glad you just saved me 2 hours of my life that I probably wouldn't get back. So, but who knows? There might have been, someone out there who probably loved it. You know what I mean? And that's the beautiful part about filmmaking, and it's an art. Some people are going to like certain aspects of it. Some people are going to hate it. Some people are going to love it. So, that's the kind of cool part about it. But I mean, I'm just, really thankful for you guys taking out the time to judge our films, that we had for the festival this year. We had a lot. So it was definitely going to be too much on our team to go through. So thank you guys so much for reviewing them and giving your thoughts about them. We got some really good ones in there. I can't wait for everyone else to see these films. Thank you guys for joining me on this panel. We really appreciate it. Thank you to Federico, Nina, and Emily. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Nice
Thank
meeting
you.
y'all.